Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name's Alexis and today I'm going to be sharing my thoughts on the Twisted series by Anna Huang. This series consists of 4 books and the last one, Twisted Lies, just came out on June 30th, hence why I felt the need to talk about my thoughts on the series as a whole, go over the synopsis, any trigger warnings I was able to pick up on, as well as the tropes featured, and at the very end I'll also be talking about Anna Huang's newest series, which is due to come out later this year. So for more information on that, feel free to continue on with this video. But without further ado, let's hop into the Twisted series. The first book of the series is titled Twisted Love by Anna Huang, and this follows Alex and Ava. This is a brother's best friend trope, grumpy sunshine trope that is fairly obvious, and it does include aquaphobia. There's a mention of stalker situation. There's violence, some trauma. There's a loss of loved ones in here. So be forewarned if any of those are your triggers. But for me, as someone who doesn't really get triggered by anything so far, I did consider this fairly enjoyable and entertaining. I will also say that this does have a hint of a bromance in here, and each female main character of the series is a best friend, and all the guys are kind of paired off with their friends as well. So in this case, the male lead, Alex here, is best friends with Josh from the third book, whereas Ava is best friends with all of the female leads in each book. With that being said, I will say this was more suspenseful than I anticipated. This did have both of them going through troubled paths, and Ava had a deep-rooted trauma related to water, whereas Alex kind of had his own events and circumstances that led him to lead a very lonely life until he met the Chens, so Ava Chen and Josh Chen. They are very important people to him, but his circumstances do end up causing a sticky situation. Once that is, revealed, they do have to come back from that, and you do get to see that throughout the series. But this story specifically follows Alex and Ava's romance, but we do get hints of the other characters and their relationships as well. So all in all, this was 4 out of 5 stars. Some of my favorite moments in this book include the moment when Alex prevented Ava from getting out of the car in the rain. There was the time at the gala. There's also the stalker situation. It's helping with swimming. The call after with work. If you read it, you'll know what I'm talking about. But those were just some really endearing moments. And even the gallery scene. If you read it, you'll understand what I'm talking about. But it's just things to look out for or look forward to. Definitely worth the read. This, yes, was an excellent start, but is it my favorite? No. The next book, titled Twisted Games, follows Bridget and Reese. I will say that this is a forbidden romance. There's a romance between the royal and the bodyguard. You can kind of guess who's who. This is kind of a slow burn romance. There is involvement of blackmail in here, some childhood trauma, and CPTSD. So I'm not 100% sure what the C stands for, but post-traumatic stress disorder on Reese's part. It's only briefly mentioned in here, but I will say all in all it was very enjoyable. As you can see, I did tab just about every book, and this one is just under 450 pages, so it's not quite as thick as the ones that follow, but just taking a moment to appreciate every book got thicker, and Anna was able to build the world that the twisted men came from and our lovely twisted women. So yes, this follows Reese being hired as a bodyguard for Bridget. Bridget, elder brother, stepped down or abdicated from the throne, so she becomes next in line, and that makes their romance more forbidden. It does follow over a few years as well. So when Reese is first hired to become Bridget's bodyguard, as well as when she has to return to her home country. I really enjoyed their first impressions. The tent date, very sweet in here. I guess percentage wise you can consider this a slow burn because it took a hot minute for them to get together, but It wasn't as slow as the last book, and I'll get into my thoughts on that one. Aside from the date, there's also moments with Josh and Jules when they are at graduation, and it's already hinted at in the previous two books about Jules and Josh. So that was very much enjoyable, and it's just, before I get into that book, just to stick with Bridget and Reese, there's also the gazebo scene, the throne scene. People definitely want to talk about that. But I think it's also essential to note not just those sensual scenes, but also consider the build up and how they don't necessarily seduce each other, but more so just show compassion for each other's situations. Um, but before I spill any more, definitely pick this up. Just like every other book in the series, I did give this 5 out of 5 stars. There's just everything about this book. Costa Rica, I just want to go there some more. Like, pictures were enough at one point, but now that this lives on in my head, take me to Costa Rica. That's all I want. This book is definitely compared to Princess Diaries 2, if you are familiar with that. That features Anne Hathaway and Chris Pine. Very enjoyable. I don't think it's necessary to watch the first movie, but in this, you should read the book before. I mean, you get to see hints at everybody's lives throughout, so I do think it's essential to read the series, whereas with that movie, you can watch it on your own. I mean, I watched the second movie first before I watched Princess Diaries 1, so it is what it is. But back to this book, it's just perfection. 5 out of 5. Highly recommend. Now, the next book is, in fact, my favorite of the series, and that would be Twisted Hate. This follows Josh and Jules. Josh, like I said before, is the elder brother of Ava and best friends with Alex. At this point, they still have their sticky situation with their romance because of the events of Twisted Love, so it is essential to read every single book if you're going to pursue the series, which I highly recommend you do, because otherwise you're missing out. But this follows Josh and Jules, and Jules is one of Ava's best friends. Jules is compared to Jessica Rabbit, if you are familiar with that cartoon. She has long red hair, curvaceous figure, and very, very enjoyable. Like, with her banter, her and Josh, I mean, I didn't even realize this book is, in fact, over 500 pages. It is, I believe, the first book I've completed on my own that is over 500 pages. And maybe for some people that's not much of an accomplishment, but for me it is, because I just never been invested in a book for that long, like for that thick. And look at that. I enjoyed just about all of it. Even when it got nitty gritty, I cried. This book moved me to tears, as did Twisted Games, but no, this one took the most out of me, took the most energy, and took the most time. And I'm 100% okay with that, because Josh is my ideal. He is the doctor, whereas Jules is a lawyer, or pursuing her lawyer's degree. They're both going to be a successful, like, power couple. I love that for them. And it's just, this book does include, their banter in the beginning. They end up going on a ski trip together. Of course, this is another best friends trope. This does have some mention of, hate with benefits. That is highly mentioned in here. History of trauma, neglect. There's some slut shaming and betrayal involved. But like I said, I think it's really just leveled out for me in the end. I mean, I think the groveling was appropriate. Some might disagree, but respectfully, no. I did anticipate that this couple would be more so friends with benefits situation, or hate with benefits situation. They were definitely more of fighting fire with fire type of couple, but in the end, they just suited each other so well that you can't help but root for them. And this is definitely my favorite couple of the series, so there you go. Now, the last book of the series that, like I said, came out on June 30th is Twisted Lies. I did tab this as well, and it does include a fair amount of, interactions with the previous couples, as well as seeing the slow burn between Christian and Stella. Stella is the introvert of the friends group, and she is very much present on online social media. She is a blogger and influencer, so she is making her way in her career through that. Her family is not as supportive as she would like them to be, and Christian, he's very much a loner because of his own situations. He is the CEO of the Harper Security Company. He did previously work with Reese as well. And I will say that this is an excruciating slow burn. They didn't get together officially till like 60%. And yes, I tracked because I was just getting so antsy. I needed more from them. But I still gave this 4 out of 5 stars. But because it was taking so long and I was just like, let it happen already, just let it freaking happen, I cannot give it 5 stars. Slow burns are just not for me, but that is okay. I do see myself revisiting it just for the sake of returning to the world. But is Stella and Christian my favorite? No. Do I see myself being very much like Stella? Yes. And I appreciate that her nickname was a butterfly because I too like the symbolism of butterfly, hence my channel name. But yes, I feel like I identify so much with Stella in here to the point where I was getting annoyed with myself. Like, why am I so much like Stella? And maybe that's not the way I should be going about this book. But in hindsight, I wouldn't mind myself a Christian. But Christian is no Christian, if you know what I'm saying. Like, he is definitely not the type of person to go to church. He's no Christian with his actions in here. And you know what? I really loved it in here because there was a mention of another character, which is going to get his own book in the next series. I'll get into that in a second. There's also the mention of Stella keeping plants and taking care of Christian's plants on his behalf. They have a lobby run-in, if you know who Mr. Unicorn is. There's also the beach and chess. Any interactions with the guys, I really enjoyed that as well, not just among the female leads, but that was very enjoyable. I didn't realize I needed it. And yeah, it was just really nice to see a man like Christian get taken down a peg because he was kind of teasing, but also looking down on Reese for his romance with Bridget. But here, Christian is the type of person to get knocked down a peg or two because of what he said to Reese in the previous book. So, this excellent way to end the series isn't my favorite, no, but it's a thick one. It's a thick one, and if you enjoy slow burns, this may even be your favorite. I will also say this did remind me of another book from another series, but I'm not going to get into that now. I'll just mention it in my wrap up for June, which will be coming sometime next week. All in all, I give this series 4.5 stars, considering 2 of them were 4 stars and 2 of them were 5 stars for me. This is how I would rank them. This being from the first, or I guess I'll say this being the first to my least favorite of the series. I will say that there's mention of the new series titled Kings of Sin. I'll place the image here from Anna's page, but it is essentially going to be inspired by the 7 deadly sins. And first book is going to be about Dante and Vivian. It seems that they are going to have a marriage of convenience situation, possibly second chance. And I haven't been able to listen in on Anna's live chats about the new book or the expected release, but I'm sure she'll be coming out with upcoming information before the release, which is scheduled in October of this year. Feel free to comment down below any thoughts you may have about the series, or even if you have any recommendations on what's related or similar, gives the same type of energy as this series. Definitely leave in the comments down below. Like, subscribe, and until next time, my name's Alexis. Happy reading.